The Mid-Market Institute, the hub for mid-sized companies, suppliers, and advisors worldwide.
The path to more exports and jobs and a brighter future. The president wants to double exports and is desperately looking for ways to create more jobs. The problem with the economy is not capacity, but demand. The American economy is stuck in a jobless recovery, and the fastest growing markets are outside the borders. 95% of the world lives outside the US. By exporting, we can use capacity here to meet demand there. The big companies have already figured this out, and they have already gone global, and most small mom and pop shops aren't nearly big enough to get into exporting. Then there is the mid-market, which most people don't recognize. These are the grown-up startups, the second stage companies that are viable businesses and have much room to grow. The American mid-market is large and creates more sticky jobs in America than either small companies or big businesses. There are about 200,000 mid-sized businesses in the US with annual revenues between 10 million and $1 billion. They comprise just 3.2% of all companies in the country and yet provide 34% of the non-governmental jobs and 31% of the revenues. The mid-market created 44% of the net new jobs in the last 5-year period covered by the US Census, better than big businesses and small businesses. And the American mid-market generates more revenue than the total GDP of Germany and Mexico combined. Yet, less than 10% of the mid-sized companies export at all. And most that do export to Canada and Mexico. The mid-market is the right vehicle for growth, for exporting, and for creating more jobs. So how do we get the mid-market to start exporting or exporting more? Who can we learn from? Lessons from the European exporting juggernaut. A 2010 study of 15,000 mid-sized companies in Europe, called the Mittelstand, from 7 European countries, found that exporting is a key to growth for mid-sized companies. But they needed to get to a certain size in order to be successful at exporting. What we need to do for American mid-market companies is to help them to scale, to grow to a size where they can be successful at exporting. Germany's mid-sized companies are prolific exporters, envied the world over, and they form the backbone of the German economy. Germany has the world's largest trade surplus and is the second largest exporting country in the world. And the Mittelstand is the heart of the German juggernaut. There are lessons from the success of the German Mittelstand that can be applied to mid-market companies elsewhere. The same study found that larger German mid-sized firms were almost twice as likely to export as smaller ones. Larger firms could easily bear the fixed costs of going global and have more sophisticated forms of organization and management than smaller companies did. The study also examined what would happen if the structure of the German Mittelstand companies were applied, say, to Italian companies, Italian Mittelstand companies. The result was an expected increase of Italy's exports by a whopping 37%. There are 2 simple things we can do to help create jobs and increase exports. We can help the mid-sized companies scale to become larger, and then 2, we can help them to export. We can carefully apply structural changes and best practices from Europe to American companies that can significantly increase exports and company performance. First, let's talk about becoming bigger. The economic benefits that accrue when mid-sized companies get bigger are considerable, and these companies need assistance to scale with processes, people, and capital. While this seems the obvious next step, few mid-sized companies actually know how to do it well. and they get very little help to do so. Second, let's talk about exporting. Since few mid-market companies export, this is a huge opportunity for them, as well as for the American economy. With the fastest growing markets being outside the US, mid-market companies need particular assistance to assess potential markets and enter them. However, mid-sized companies neither have the deep pockets of a large company nor the organizational and management skills to be successful. In short, they don't have an exporting department. They need help. Mid-sized companies are viable and have much room to grow. Helping mid-sized companies scale and export will increase our GDP, the total amount of products that we produce within the US, and decrease our trade deficit, meaning we export more and therefore we have a smaller trade deficit. And it will create American jobs. Let's get started.